Hi and welcome. My name is Tolan and I'm the co-founder of Productivity Me. In this video, we're going to look at the idea of the average function within Microsoft Excel. We'll discuss briefly how to use the average function and then we'll move on. Okay, so let's get started. If you want to follow along, go ahead and open up exercise file 04.07. In our last video, we looked at the idea of the sum function, and we also used the idea of autosum in order to automatically sum a series of values. Now, similar to the sum function is the idea of the average function. Now, you don't need a function to take an average, right? So we could basically say that we want to sum a series of values, whatever these values are. Let's say we want to sum these individual values, and then because there are 4 values, the average of these 4 values, we would divide the total by 4, and the average sales would be 143. But what if we actually, the number in our data set changed? Or what if we only wanted to average 3 values? Then we would have to go in and we would have to change both. Let's say we only wanted to do it to C5, we would have to change C5 as well as this, and that can be a little bit problematic. So instead, we could actually just take the average function, and by applying the average function, we can select, say, these 3 individual items that we want, and it would automatically change. Or we could say if we wanted the average of these 4, we would be able to change it that way. So it's just one less step that you would have to take than doing something like taking the sum and then dividing it by the n, or the number of items in your specific range. So if you wanted to apply, and this is just a question of the number of decimal places displayed, which we'll discuss in a later video. So the way that you would essentially use the average function is you would type an equal sign and then start typing average. Now there are different types of average. So there's average, which will provide the average or the arithmetic mean. So the arguments, if you want to do average A, it's going to return the arithmetic mean of the arguments, but it's going to have a true or false component. There can be average if, which when we talk about if statements, we get to that, and average ifs, if there are multiple if statements. We're just going to stick with average. So again, we could either type out average, or you can, once you've selected the individual function that you want, you press the tab key, and then we could manually select those cells that we want. You input them in, it automatically calculates the average. We can use the fill handle to bring it over. So we could even take the average of the total sales. And then the same thing is here. So you could do average of these values and then bring it down. Now, if you wanted to, there's actually an auto average feature. So if you wanted to use the auto average feature, there would be a couple different ways to do that. So let's say that you wanted to take the average. We'll just delete these values. Let's say that we wanted to take the average, right, of these individual values. Well, if we want to take the sum, we would go to auto sum and we would just click and it would automatically select sum. But you can actually use auto average by clicking here to the right of auto sum, and then you would click average and it would take that average. So you could say, I want to take the average of all of these. You would come to auto average and then average, and it would automatically populate the average of those cells, and then of those cells, and then of those cells. An alternative way to find the average, so if you wanted to say this would be your average, you could go ahead and select your data here, and then you would go to data, or rather formulas. Underneath AutoSum, you would click this and you would go to average, and it would automatically average that. You could then bring it down, and you could even find the average. Oops. You could find Control Z to undo that. You could find the average of those average values. So again, in this video, we kind of wanted to look at the average function. The average function was done by typing average, and then selecting the range of cells that we wanted and pressing enter. We could bring that over. Or if we so wanted to, we could use something like the auto sum function. To the right of the auto sum function, there's average. So it would calculate that. And then we could come down and bring it down in that way. So that in a nutshell is average. In the next video, we'll go ahead and we'll look at the min and max functions here within Microsoft Excel. If you're interested in finding the high value or the low value of any given range, you can join us in the next video. Okay, we'll see you again soon. And as always, thanks for watching.